Friends and subscribers, this is China News for November 2013. Big news in China here. Offshore security beefed up around the Senkaku Diaoyu Islands area. China has established and immediately patrolled its first East China Sea Air Defense Identification Zone, ADIZ. This is in response to a South Korean, Japanese, and American vessels that have entered the East China Sea near the disputed island chains. Now, no one is denying that these vessels did enter the area, which is officially in Chinese waters, but not actually in the Japanese-controlled area. This could either be a provocation or an error in judgment, but the Chinese are simply not happy about it. So, as I've been saying for a couple of years now, this whole situation in East China Sea and other areas around Asia is not going to go away. I believe that the islands in dispute, that debate there, that disagreement between Japan and China is not going to end nicely. It's going to end in possibly military action, and it could be right away this year. It could be in the next couple of years. Difficult to say, but tensions are rising and continuing to rise month on month. Every week there's some kind of problem around the islands with ships that enter zones which are in dispute. So we'll keep an eye on this, but this problem is not going to go away until it is completely resolved, because Japan and China believe that they should have 100% ownership of that territory. Just at a time when China is beefing up their navy, deep water vessels, they are printing propaganda in the newspapers almost daily. Japan has no right to protest China embassy releases, and we'll keep a close eye on this, like I said, and see where it goes. But there are many more island chains besides the Diaoyu Senkaku Island chain. Disputes between Philippines, South Korea, Thailand, and others. So it's a hotbed area, really, of tension. And the Middle East is just not the only area in the world where we could have possible multi-nation wars and possible world war kick off in the next couple of years. The Red Army was in full force during the most recent Communist Party of China Central Committee meeting. And basically what has happened is that the market will play a decisive role. According to the officials, they're announcing some reforms. As to whether or not those social reforms will be deep enough, nobody knows for sure. But what is of high interest is that there is another political party in China that has been formed by the followers of ousted Bo Xilai and Jiang Zemin. That faction has a new party. They have announced it. They have come out and said that we have a new political party. And in a one-party system, that is a dangerous thing. Basically, people are fed up. 33% want political reform, and they're not getting it. So the formation of new parties is a fact in China. As to what the central government will do about it, we do not know yet. But in the past, anyone that has defied the central government in China has ended up on house arrest or possible jail or execution. As housing prices continue to rise despite government intervention in China, real estate firms owe as much as $623.58 billion in tax report. The building explosion throughout most of China that created a bubble economy in real estate has revealed much more as the months go on, including the fact that many of the real estate companies that are either partially owned by government officials or have a friendly relationship with government officials are not paying taxes. And this adds support to my views that China is in part a bubble economy, especially when it comes to areas such as real estate. And housing prices continue to go up. People keep signing their life away, house slaves, for what is essentially small apartments with no land ownership and a 70-year lease on property. So when will the bubble burst? Who knows? It could go on indefinite, or it could be something that happens here first second quarter next year. Cartoon of the day in China's Global Times newspaper, Nuclear Fallen. It's basically showing that President Obama and the Iran Authority have agreed to a nuclear agreement. And who would have thought that this was possible? But then again, who would have thought that there would be a Muslim in the White House? So times they be a changing, and against the wishes of Israel and several other countries, Iran has some sort of agreement, some sort of assurance at least, that there'll be discussions on any nuclear related talks. Shanghai's free trade zone set up the first auction of goods. This is an area that's high concern to people in Hong Kong because the China-Shanghai Free Trade Zone will offer goods at tariff-free, just as they are in Hong Kong. But for many foreigners that want to set up small businesses and Chinese tourists that want to buy foreign goods on the cheap, they'll be going to Shanghai if they're on the mainland rather than going all the way to Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a limited space, although they have a lot of goods, but Shanghai is more spread out, more convenient for many shoppers to go to. So this adds a little more worry and doubt people in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Authority, as to whether or not the Chinese mainland and Beijing will clamp down more so both on the financial side and on the social freedoms in Hong Kong. By the way, the Shanghai Free Trade Zone is also set up as Hong Kong, where you can access the entire internet in this zone if you're a foreigner. So that's of high interest. It's the only time really in the mainland where you have some social adjustments for foreigners living in the free trade zone. So that's at least promising in part. In what is one of the comical stories of this month, a lawyer in Beijing accuses a college student of stealing his semen. She was trying to get his services for a legal problem with her boyfriend, a 19-year-old college freshman, and the lawyer made advances towards her, and she filed a attempted rape claim against him, and his excuse to the judge is, "She stole my semen." Comical, pathetic, I don't know what that is, but you see a lot of these news stories in China. The social sophistication in cases like this are simply not there, and everybody knows that most of Chinese court system is basically kangaroo courts. Planes, trains, and automobiles in China. I just did a video on China's e-taxis. Well, here's the rest of the story. 350 million number of trips taken on flight projected for the end of 2013 in China. That's a record. 320 million, the number of trips taken on flights in 2012. So you can see that's up. 106 million, the number of cars and Chinese roads by the end of 2011. That will increase. 2.8 trillion, the total amount in RMB invested in railway sector during the government's 2011 to 2015 railway development program. By early 2014, the number of high-speed rail travelers is expected to surpass 54 million. And as I reported in a previous video, that has also a lot to do with the Chongqing, Chengdu area, where they have a lot of high-tech companies and they're trying to build a new Silk Road, not just for tourism and people on trains, but also goods. They want to build a high-speed rail network all the way to Europe. And that is a long-term plan, but judging by the rate that they're building track and the rate that they're investing money in this, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't at least be able to touch to the outer western rim of China with their high-speed rail. On a side note, one of the highly prized jobs, the openings, 4,000 new pilots needed in the next 5 years in China. Flight attendants, anything to do with traveling by rail, auto production, and of course air travel is going to be a boom area for China, and also nurses. Nurses is one area where there's a lot of growth here in China. In fact, they might even have to import nurses, foreign nurses here. And that's kind of surprising, but there aren't qualified enough nurses and healthcare professionals here, even though they have a very huge population and a lot of education for that population. It's still an aging population that needs healthcare services. So that's one other area where foreign businesses can take off with their technology. In need of help, many factories and bosses of factories are lamenting slowdown in China. This is one example. Zhao Bailin feeling jaded that his company received an order worth over 400 million yuan, but had to hold back from the lucrative deal because his factories all stalled because could not barely finance the production, Zhao said. And this is a solar company located in south of China. This is an all too common story, and I have many friends who are in the same situation where factories are laying off, slowing down, jobs are hard to find. Over 25% of new Chinese graduates cannot find jobs, and this is coming at a bad time when Chinese banks, by government decree, are holding back on financing to stop the growth of hot money in China. Microlending is now coming under close watch. They're trying to slow the economy down because they understand that it has overheated, and the policy changes came a little bit too late. The bubble economy has already gotten to a point where things are overheated. Inflation is much higher here than it is in the West. And we'll keep a close eye on factory output. Those numbers should be coming out here soon for third quarter. It appears that the Chinese central government will speed up yuan reform. They just had a huge meeting in Beijing of all the top officials, and shift in tone has happened. The central bank governor has dangled the prospect of speeding up currency reform and giving markets more room to set the yuan's exchange rate as he underlines broader plans for sweeping economic change. This comes ahead of a statement that was made that China no longer needs any more foreign reserves. This may not have reached the headlines in the West, but it's of major importance that China is no longer seeking foreign reserves. They basically have enough. They have enough going forward to get what they want to get done. Now, yuan exchanges and getting that integrated into foreign markets is a key, and gold being the big move there, because a yuan backed by gold would lead a lot of support to worldwide acceptance. And in a move that is flabbergasting, China elected to UN Human Rights Council for a 3-year term. Basically, what has happened is that China is on the board to counsel and give policy planning for human rights in the UN. And this is some surprise to most people because China has a terrible record of human rights, and that can be proven in many different ways. Basically, what is happening here is China is actually interjecting in international opinion of human rights, but at home it simply is not up to snuff. Now, recently I had mentioned that there's another political party in China with the Bo Xilai faction, and they've come right out and said who their members are, and are quite confident in their ability to form and keep this party. After that had happened, and after some terrorist events that happened in Tiananmen Square and more problems in Xinjiang to the west of China, the Chinese government has banned any type of demonstrations in Tiananmen Square until further notice. Now, this is in a direct conflict with human rights, because the right to assemble and the right to apply for a permit to have a peaceful protest or demonstration in Tiananmen Square, a public place, should be the right of every Chinese. But again, that is being ignored, and that is just one example of many. So the UN electing China to Human Rights Council is something of a curious thing, I think. The devastation in the Philippines, the biggest storm recorded on record, Typhoon Haiyan, wreaked havoc all over the Philippines, thousands dead. multi-millions of damage, and who was first to get supplies to the victims of the storm? China. And this is part of what the Chinese have been doing for several years, actually, trying to use soft tactics to gain more respect and influence over foreign countries. And they can do this in a number of ways, with aid, with business deals, and eventually with sweetheart deals with the renminbi. We'll see where it leads to, but it's a smart move. Soft power and hard power only if you need it, and hard power if you are ready to project hard power, which the Chinese Navy is not yet.